Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Design Sense. I'm Raad Ghantous, and my co-host today, as always, is Mr. Bill Elson. How are you,
Hello,
Bill? Good
I'm
morning.
fine. How are you?
I am great,
Thanks
man.
for having me on the show as your host.
You are my wingman. I cannot do this show without you, so I'm glad you're here.
Oh, thank
I'm glad you showed up for this one too.
me too.
He's always there. So I know that you always find really good and interesting guests, and when we have them on, we tend to dig a little bit deeper than maybe some
hmm
people know about them. And I
Yes.
think today's guest is probably going to be the same opportunity. So why don't you start us off and let people know, who do we have on today for?
Well, this is a person I've known for a while, and she has a very, very interesting story, I think. She graduated in product, her specialty was product design. She first started designing cars, and then she was approached by Hasbro, and she worked for them for 10 years exclusively to bring Barbie, the iconic fashion model that we all grew up with. To
Right.
bring Barbie was not having too much success, and Pam was able to bring them to the big success they are now. And she decided at some point, which we want to find out, that she would turn her whole world around and do a 360 and start doing interior design. And she's a very successful interior designer. She's also been a member of the Philharmonic Symphony charity. She works or volunteers at two charities. La Casa is one for the House of Design, and the other one is Harbor Light, and they do that fabulous Newport Harbor cruise at Christmas time. So I want
In Huntington Harbor, right?
Huntington Harbor, yes,
Yeah.
and Huntington Harbor, Huntington Beach. So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce the very fascinating and funny Pam Barthold.
Hey, Pam, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you guys? Good to see you.
Hi, Pam.
Likewise.
Thanks
Hi.
for joining us. We're so excited.
Thanks for
to be
having
here.
me.
Now, I mentioned in your intro that it really interests me how you were able to pivot from your corporate world, where everything is so, planned and strategic, into interior design, which a lot of people think is very esoteric, very flowing and free flow. So perhaps you could shed some light on that for our viewers, please.
Well, before you do,
Um,
Pam, sorry, let me ask you
Before
that.
we do that,
No, I want to just ask you. Bill mentioned that you started off with product design, right? So I'm assuming, did you go to school for that?
I did. Actually, I'm cum laude graduate from Purdue University in industrial design.
And industrial design. So
Industrial design.
was that always did you know from an early age that that's what you wanted to do? And now I'm curious because there's two fields that I know that people somehow seem to stumble into by happy accidents. One of them, or by personal experiences. One of them is design, and the other one is basically senior care. Because like senior care, everybody has like a personal story of why they got involved in basically being part of that industry. In design, it's like either somebody really knew from early on that they needed this sort of creative artistic outlet, or somewhere along the way they were exposed to something and they're like, oh, this is interesting, I didn't really realize you could make a career out of this. So what was it like for you?
So I was the child that sat in my room and copied, drawing album covers, the Aerosmith, sat there and drew them and those types of things. So, my dad built me a dollhouse, and I put the dolls aside and I redesigned the dollhouse. I made my own wallpaper. I built my own furniture. I, played and really as an interior designer at the age of 4.
Wow.
So I knew I wanted to be in design. And then the funny story is, so my dad, he went to Purdue, his grandfather went to Purdue. I mean, it's in
You
our
were
family.
You were a legacy.
A legacy, exactly. My brother, my sister, we all went to Purdue. And so my dad, he basically filled out, everything, and he knew everyone at Purdue. And so I wanted to be, I knew, a designer. So I signed up for design, and at Purdue, it's an engineering school.
Right.
And so it's in the School of Humanities. And so he put me in hotel and restaurant management, unbeknownst to me. And so I thought I was going in to the design school. So my first class, I'm like, this doesn't feel like design. Because when I'm looking at my class schedule, it's all hotel and restaurant management classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I called my dad and I said, what did you do? He said, I put you in hotel restaurant management because you'll make no money in design.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, which is again a
Yes.
standard story a lot of us can share, right?
Right. And
yeah.
so, he wanted the best for me, and I get it. He was a very successful businessman. And so, so I said, well, that's not happening. So I changed it and I started in, the design school in Purdue. And then there was these guys that were working in, the shop, and they were making things and they were doing things, that were very creative.
Yeah.
And they had an industrial design program there that you had to apply for. And so they accept 15 students a year. And so I was accepted. I was the only woman that was accepted in my year. And so it was under Thomas Davis, who is I don't know if he's a world famous industrial designer.
Right.
And Chelsea Wu, who did the Fiero.
Yeah.
The one that you hit from behind, it blows up. He's the one who did that. So that's my design. So yes, it's always been
Pontiac, wasn't it, Pam? Wasn't it
Pontiac? I apologize.
Fiero. It was Fiero. Yeah. Yeah. I was trying. That's digging up an old car model.
So most people that go to Purdue go into cars and design cars.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, thank you for kind of walking us through this, because I can see the connections. And I will tell you, when I was working for Hirsch Bender out of Atlanta, that was the first time I got wind of a thing called the Savannah School of Art and Design.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so tempted to just basically pack it all in and just go down and just do another degree. I didn't care what it was. And the draw, and this is one of the things, you and I were talking about, things that maybe we miss out on when we put people through school, right? And that in design school, and that maybe some of it should materialize. One of the things that was really appealing for me with Savannah College of Art and Design was the fact that they had all these workshops that you could do a lot of hands-on metalwork, jewelry work, textiles, you name it. It was actually hands-on doing and familiarizing yourself with the properties of materials and what have you. And that was just so appealing to me. So I could totally understand where you're looking at this exciting stuff happening right after, well, not right after, but having redesigned your dollhouse down to furniture at the age of 4. And now all of a sudden somebody just opened up the toy box and said, hey, look, here's industrial design.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
So how did you go from cars to toys?
So when I was in, no, but when I was at Purdue, so that's, when they introduced, what you could do,
mm-hmm.
And cars was not my interest, and so then they introduced that you could do toy design. I'm like, you could design a toy? Oh yeah, someone designs those, right?
Yeah.
How fun.
The dollhouse comes in play again. See,
right. Exactly.
I'm connecting.
It's all circles around.
I'm connecting.
Right?
Yeah, circles within circles.
So I, obviously, when I first, they come to, Purdue and they, entice you. So they enticed me, and so I went to Viking. I lasted for 6 months. It was kind of ridiculous, but I then immediately went to Paramount Toys, which is a small toy company in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And then Hasbro saw me at Paramount, and then I went to Hasbro, and I designed My Little Pony. I'll sing, but you don't want to hear me sing. And then I did Cindy. Cindy is the Japanese version of Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jazz is the.
I remember Jazz. Yeah.
Good. You guys are good. Yep. And then there's a very well-known inventor, Marty Abrams. He's pretty much designed or invented most of the toys of the 70s and 80s, maybe even a little bit into the 90s. And I worked with him as the sole designer to create Faz. And Faz is a jewelry makeup line.
Okay.
And so that was a really cool, fun thing to go to New York and be with him and design that line. I'm still with Hasbro, but
Yeah.
it was a line with him. But then Mattel asked to double my salary along with 8 others. We call them the grade 8s.
Mm-hmm.
And along with, there were some marketing people and some designers, me included, to come and help, as they say, save Barbie out of Chapter 11, to come in.
So you moved to California at that time?
That's right. Mm-hmm. So Hasbro is in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. So yes, that's what.
So lucky
what
for California, you came to visit us and stayed.
It is lucky. And once you come to California, it is hard to leave.
It is hard to leave. That's true.
So hard to leave.
So how long were you with Mattel?
So I was at Mattel for 10 years, and I got 7 promotions in 10 years.
Wow, impressive.
I was driven.
Yeah.
I knew what I wanted. I knew what positions I needed. I was also in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
I started out as a senior designer, and Mattel has 2 avenues to go. You can either go into management, or you can stay in design and stay in, different levels of design. When I was starting to go, I was in management, I went that level. And all of a sudden we realized there was a wonderful, very talented CEO that took over. Her name was Jill Berard. And I mean, she's the most creative, talented CEO I've ever seen. And she really, just to watch her, along with other marketing people, helped brand that Barbie. We call it the pink aisle. And it's, what really drove Barbie in the 80s and 90s to reinvent it. And it went from, really hurting line to $1 million line. And then we realized there was an opportunity of licensing.
Mm-hmm.
There was, believe it or not, there was not anyone licensing at that time. And there was a gentleman that was kind of bastardizing Barbie and putting her on things that were inappropriate. So we actually came up with licensing, and I was, along with 4 other designers. It was myself and 4 other designers, and then 3 marketing people. We went from 1 licensee to 500.
Wow.
In 1 year.
Wow.
And we brought Barbie from $1 million brand to $1 billion brand.
Wow.
In a year. It was crazy.
When was this, Pam?
So that was in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah. So not that far. And so I was creating style guides for mass and class. And the difference is mass is, the marts, the Walmart, Target, things.
Mm-hmm.
Class is like Macy's and Bloomingdale's, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Because the buyers, are completely different. They're, I don't mean the buyers meaning the people that purchase. I mean the buyers that we sell to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and their target market is different, right? I mean,
Perfect.
That line of toys. I mean, Barbie line. It's everything from limited edition, high-end collector items to everything. I mean, it's fascinating the breadth and width of that line. So when you went to Mattel, I'm just curious. When you went to Mattel, when was that? Like 80s, 70s?
1989. 89. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so for just staying on the Barbie thing, so 1989, the brand that particular line was suffering. Okay, what do you? And I mean, obviously, it had to be repositioned, reinvented. What was the problem? I'm just curious.
I mean, there's a lot of political things that were the problem.
Right. Internal stuff.
Internal stuff.
Yeah.
There was the lack of branding. They had SKUs that were all over the place, meaning they had Beach Barbie that was in a box that was yellow. They had
inconsistency. Inconsistencies.
Inconsistency. Perfect.
Right. Yeah.
So, what we basically did is there was a lot of tooling dollars that were out there. So there was a lot of money that was spent that, we really needed to hone in on.
Yeah.
So I went overseas, and I was overseas a lot. And basically what I did is I went and I looked at all the old tooling,
Mm-hmm.
and I reinvented the old tooling. So one of the things that I was known for is I took the old Barbie furniture, which was Sweet Dreams, and I reinvented it. I used the exact same tooling that was used in the 70s, and I recolored it, refreshed it, relabeled it, reupholstered it, and refreshed it. So it was no dollars out of their pocket.
Yeah.
And it was amazing because, imagine the cost savings and the turnaround time, because, the amount of time it takes to tool versus, the amount of time.
Absolutely. And basically getting up to speed on that and bringing it online and all of that is just, it's a domino effect. So repurposing what you already have, but then reimagining the use of it. Yeah. I mean, that's brilliant. I'm just curious, maybe I'm too far removed age-wise and I don't really have anybody that's of that age, but the impression to me is that right now that line is okay, but it's kind of not really in the heights it was in the 80s and then in the 90s. Is it still?
That's because Pam left.
Well,
That's right, Bill.
I'm just curious, and I have a purpose for I'm going down this path, because I think right now with what's going on with us with the COVID, I think a lot of people prior to COVID were running very fat. It wasn't lean operation. It wasn't really probably streamlined. The consistencies were not there in a lot of industries, a lot of service industries. And I've noticed that, those who are sticking around are having to reimagine, and they have to do it without really a lot of resources that they can throw at it. So, I mean, I'm using that as an example because it's Barbie, everybody knows Barbie, but it really is the exercise of basically reimagining something and taking a fresh look at it with a new set of eyes, like you were basically provided a new set of eyes for Mattel to do that. So that's a good thing. And then what happened after 10 years?
So,
at Mattel, what happened after 10 years at Mattel for you?
Was there a specific event that you decided, I need to?
I'm done with Barbie. I can't stand her anymore.
No, I love Barbie. Barbie was very good to me. Very good to me.
Well, you have pink on, so we can still tell. Yes.
Once you're a Barbie girl,
you're a Barbie girl.
Once you're a Barbie girl, yes.
I was very driven. And then, the world happens when, they say when you have a child, life does change.
Oh, so yeah.
And I never believed, that when I had a child. So I had my first child, and, when you're in corporate world, it's not 9 to 5. If you're focused, you can get by, they say, but I'm not a get buyer. I don't do anything, as they say, half-ass. It's just who I am and my nature.
You don't get 7 promotions in 10 years with being, half-assed or getting by. You are a career person, 24/7. You eating it, breathing it, sleeping it. Yeah, I got it.
Thank you, and it's true, Raad. And I do that in my own, business right now. This is how I am. It's just part of me. I don't know. Yeah, it's from my father.
And
so anyway, so I would literally pick her up at daycare at 6, and I'd bring her back to my office and put her under my desk to 11, 12, 1, I know. And so then I got pregnant shortly after, so they were 18 months apart, and I had to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
But at least you have time for some extracurricular activity.
Right, a little bit. 20 minutes.
You can't just work, Bill. Come on.
Just a few,
Just a few times.
So,
And now you're going to have a second one. And
so then I was having the second one. And so I really had to make a decision. And not that women should never make a decision. I don't want to go down that, path,
right.
And I don't want, haters. But I personally needed to make a decision. And I did not want others to raise my children. So I left Mattel to raise my children and start my own company.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought was to be in toys. always, you know, I mean, I was going to invent and I was going to, you know, freelance and, you know, because freelance is amazing with Mattel.
Right.
But it was amazing because the preschool that my child was in, which is a very high-end preschool in Manhattan Beach, was in a very, you know, affluent area in California, asked me to design their preschool. And, you know, it goes back to my days of designing, you know, my childhood dollhouse. And I loved it, you know, and once a designer, I mean, it's in your heart, it's in your, you know, mind. And I mean, I designed a giant sandcastle wall that separated the 2-story, you know, areas. And we did giant fishes that hung from the ceiling to designate each area. I mean, the creativity was amazing. And then, you know, different parents of the preschool saw that and then asked me to design. And as I said, you know, it just snowballed. And
That's how, yes.
Here I am.
And here
Well, you were given a 3-dimensional canvas to play with.
Perfect.
I mean, right? Yeah.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Now, I also find what I think is very fascinating and amazing is on your website, you offer 4 levels of client participation in the design process. And was interesting in the fact that you've been actually doing virtual design for years and not just recently since the pandemic. So how did you come about that? That's fascinating to me.
So I'm not 26.
You're not.
I know I look it. But my whole thought process is to design and live in the Bahamas.
Oh, there you go.
So I thought, how could I do that?
Can I be your assistant?
Yeah, but you see, but you see, you don't need to be an assistant in the Bahamas, Bill. That's the thing. It's like,
oh, I mean, I can make your margaritas and, you know, put suntan lotion on your back.
No. You're going to still be in Tustin, okay? Being an assistant to her in the Bahamas. Are you getting how this works?
A Debbie Downer today, you know.
No, I'm not. I'm going to be in St. Croix communicating with her uncle.
Oh, you're going to be in St. Croix, and I can't even go there.
I didn't say
you can all come live with me.
We're all going to have a compound in the Bahamas.
We're going to be in the Bahamas designing.
We
can all go live in the Bahamas.
Can we make sure Bill's casita is off to the side of the property?
Yeah. You guys are, I miss you guys.
We miss you too.
So you're going to design in the Bahamas.
I worked for Michael Chan, which is a very well high-end design architect in Hollywood.
Yep.
And he had a client that I was solely working with in the Hamptons. And I was doing it basically virtually.
Right.
And then I got this idea because I was purchasing things in Italy and I was purchasing things, you know, from Europe and I was having it drop shipped.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'm like, I can do that. And so then I started a company that I now do independently of Pazzam Design, where you can get on and purchase products and you can drop ship them anywhere in the country. So then I thought, I could take it one step further and you could purchase Pazzam in your pocket and you could basically purchase me and you could drop ship me, technically. Not hurt me, but technically. And you could basically purchase me by the hour and like we're doing now because of our technology. And you could hire me by the hour. Now, that had, you know, been my thought, meaning be in the Bahamas and do what we're doing, because I can do FaceTime and I do that. Like, for instance, I have a house in Philadelphia that I'm doing and, you know, I walk around with a contractor and he has his phone in his hand and I have my phone in my hand and we walk around like I would do in any normal project.
Right.
And then if someone wants to touch and feel the, you know, materials, I send them a box of the materials, just like, you know, here, and they have their box and I have mine and we talk and things of that nature. Now, there are clients that I have a client that I did in Georgia and she wanted the personal touch. So she flew me out there. I, met with her. I did a walkthrough. I did all the measurements. I came back to my office here in LA, and I do everything. I draw my own drawings. I did all my drawings, and then I never went back. So, there's, how I have a house in Oregon right now that I'm doing. I've never even been to Oregon, and, she did all the measurements and things of that nature.
Yeah, Pam, it's interesting because I think it's one of those situations where you find a way to provide the service. And I think then you realize that maybe this is a repetitive model, that I could maybe scale this, which is what you've done. You scaled this into, and in doing so, given clients an opportunity to even like try you out in a way, and then build on that. And, I'm not sure, I don't know what I want. And it's almost like, let's learn how to dance together. And the price of entry is not prohibitive. And here's your options. I think it's brilliant. I mean, and it could be that it started off, again, you're a solution, creative solution provider, if you will, designer. And here's a situation that presented itself, an opportunity presented itself, and boom, you find a way to do it.
Well, there's also different levels of clients, because some clients are very needy. True. And they need you to hold their hand all the way through it. Some clients just want you, like you said, to specify everything, let them order it, and then let them handle all of it. It's just the same as offering the service that the client wants. And I think you're very innovative in doing that, Pam, which is part of your big success, which is why you're here on the show, because I think what you're doing is very interesting.
I mean, you some of them, they don't have the time, but I've noticed myself, like you walk in and you start working with them, and at the beginning you don't know them, they don't know you,
right?
But, you're either by referral or reputation, whatever, they're bringing you in, they realize they need help, they may not even understand what it is that they need help with, to be honest, and then they basically start working with you, and I find that they're holding everything close to the chest. They're going to do everything. They're going to be involved in everything. And then as you work with them, as the trust relationship starts to develop, they start letting go more and more control. And then it's like, you know what? No. I'd rather go to my kid's recital. I really don't want to spend 2 hours basically reviewing this. Just here's my card. Take care of it. Could you please just take care of it? And it changed. And it's also different based on profession. Like if your commercial client is a doctor, there may be a front office manager that now all of a sudden is making all that. So you have to be flexible, I guess is what I'm saying, when you're dealing with people, because it's not really a one size fits all. And sometimes professional service contractors or consultants tend to try to make the client fit their mold. And I think what Bill is referring to in your case is that you have provided multiple options for your client to basically feel a sense of a little bit more flexibility of how to basically work with you, which is brilliant, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. And there's two, it's interesting. So, I consider myself a designer for all. So meaning, there are different levels as Bill pointed out. Right. And so, if you just need me for an hour to help you, move your furniture or, give you a color palette, that's an offering. Mm-hmm. And that's, an hour service or, an email or things like that. But then there's the high end, level. And then it's interesting because, there's two different high end clients. There's one that needs you to, how do I say, fill their ego, right? Mm-hmm. And be there and show them and you know what I mean? Yeah. And then there's another.
Oh yeah.
Right? We all know, right? And then but then there's the other high-end client that, really just wants it to be, a beautiful home that you use your creativity, that they respect, and they know, and they genuinely know that they could not do without you.
Right.
They want to be Pazzammed.
They want to be, exactly. They want to be Pazzammed. And, they don't necessarily need to see you. They don't need to have you there all day. They don't need to have you, take them everywhere. And so, the virtual design, it's almost, I found that, with the high-end clients, it's this great mystery. Mm-hmm. It's there's nothing that, you know, that is even greater than your home that you have in your head, they have in their head, and they've described to me, but they haven't met me.
Mm-hmm.
They have an idea of me. And then all of a sudden their home is magically transformed. Like poof, like it's like this TV show, right? That they
Move
all
that
watch.
bus. Move that bus. 20 minutes later, it's all done.
Exactly.
A little longer than 20 minutes.
But they didn't have all this commotion, you know, of coming in and trying to sell them and trying to, you know what I mean? And they love it.
Well, I don't think you can do that anymore. I mean, back in the day, maybe, but I think the level of sophistication that most clients, even on whatever level they are, whether it's a condo remodel, whether it's a 7,000 square foot house, whether it's a multi-story building, I think the minimum level of sophistication has changed so much in the last 20 years. And in part, I mean, you know, just think about it in terms of how many hours of HGTV or Travel Channel or whatever that people watch. And it's so easy to get that information, right? It's not exclusive anymore.
No.
You don't need to.
Thanks to Google and the internet.
Yeah, you don't need to know sources.
There is one thing that I want to mention. You know, I go on a lot of designers' websites all the time. I'm always seeing what other designers are doing as far as their website. How do you get up? Because that's how you get clients. And I do want to say, Pam, your website is so wonderful. It's
very
so
nicely done. Yes.
Thank you.
Figure out which level you want. You have your beautiful shots. I mean, you could tell that you have that corporate background to put it on in the internet, because a lot of designers' websites are not that friendly for the actual user, because you have to have someone, which I can tell you must have, go on your website that doesn't know anything about you to figure it out. And I was very, very impressed with your website.
Well, most designer websites tend to be portfolios. Your website, what struck me about your website is, to Bill's point, exactly well put.
But the font styling, the spacing, the white space, how you go from one level to another, it's very simple, very easy to follow.
Easy to navigate, and it actually it's you guide them, and that's kind of the interesting thing. It's written for to Bill's point, it's written for the benefit of the end user and not for the glorification.
A lot of designers' websites are very I've used that word before, but very flowery and very designerly, but they're kind of hard to follow.
Designerly, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The kind of terms you learn on
the new term.
Design Sense. We bring
and
you
I
terms.
have to tell you, I'm so thankful for you to say that, because I'm very corporate.
Yeah,
I'm very corporate. I do Excel spreadsheets before I present everything. My clients know I'm not a salesperson. I really am. I just can't do it. This is it. This is the design. If you like it, that's how I am. Type of person. You guys know me very well. I'm this is it kind of person.
What you see is what you get.
There's nothing behind the curtain.
No drama. We like that.
Must be that Midwest thing.
Yes. Yes, Miss Pam.
I'm so my point is, someone recently told me that I need to redo my website because it's not designy.
Oh, well, that's the reason why I liked it so much.
And you said, "Thank you very much."
And I said, "Thank you very much, sir, ma'am."
Yeah.
And so it's very refreshing.
I think one of the reasons is the general public has an idea or a vision of designers that is not, in my opinion, incorrect. Your website tells the potential client this is what you get for this price. This is what you get for this price. And a lot of clients don't even know how the designer is charging them. How am I paying you? How does this all work? But yours is very clear, concise, and easy to follow.
And I'd like to touch on that for a minute, just as a designer for all of,
Please.
I think that our design schools are doing a disservice for our designers, because I'm very transparent monetarily. And I think that there is a lack of money conversation in our design schools. You know, money is not a bad word. And I think that designers are reluctant to be transparent in money. And as we've all talked about, you know, consumers are very savvy. You know, they can look up pricing.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be hidden. We should be very honest and very transparent.
Right.
And so that is what my business model is.
Well,
I'm very transparent. There's nothing hidden, and there shouldn't be, because you know, my service is design. My service is not a mystery.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, they're paying for me and my mind, right? And so again, I'm not a salesperson. So you can know what the furniture prices are, you know what the, you know, upholstery prices are. Right. That's not my business. That's retail business, right?
I could not agree with you more, Pam. And I've been saying this forever too. I mean, again, maybe not coming at things from design pure to begin with as a prior career, and then kind of transitioning into it. Maybe that, you know, very instinctively from the very beginning. Exactly what you just said. I am being hired for me and for my mind, and as a consultant, if you will, not as a salesperson. And I think what you're right. I think we do a disservice on two levels. That being one, to people in design school. The other one is that we somehow need to act in an exclusive capacity. Like if we don't somehow, with the client, act like we know where the magic is. We know the secret handshake to get into that showroom. Like if we don't have that sort of like awe and mystique about us, that somehow we are not able to charge. And it's true, you have to get your head in a different space as far as how your business model is, so that you can make a living at this and be successful at it. But that transparency has another benefit as well, other than the fact that it makes it a heck of a lot easier for you and your life. Like, I don't need to try to remember what is it that I charged you and what was it that I got it for and where I got it from and how many pieces of paperwork. I mean, you know, if I don't fill out one more sales tax report in my life, I'm actually happier than heck. I don't care, right? You pay me in a different way. And in fact, in a way that is more sustainable and in a way that is more clear and succinct, and it has a direct correlation between payment and receivables, and it's very, very easy. The other thing that we don't understand when we tell people to basically keep it close to your chest and not be transparent is that transparency, when it comes to conducting business of that nature, when it comes to money, is the quickest way to build trust with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am, open books. Anytime you want, you can take a look at it. I have nothing absolutely to hide. I'm telling you exactly what it is. If I'm doing a markup, I know exactly what my markup is. You're paying me for the service of processing and handling and all that stuff, right?
Procurement.
Yeah, procurement. But that procurement is a service. You could technically even do a lump sum on that, given the scope of a work. And then you know exactly what you're being paid, and you break it down. And so you don't have to, every minute you do an invoice or a bill, you got to figure out, okay, how can I bilk this to the maximum? And then you can actually free up to do what you are basically good at, which is design.
Yeah.
Anyway,
because, you know,
you're preaching to the choir on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, because procurement, you know, when people ask me, you know, why would I pay you, you know, a percentage? Well, one, you know, I'm giving you a benefit because the cost of the furniture, if you bought it off the showroom, I'm giving you a percentage off, which is, you know, a huge benefit. But then also, if anyone, and we all know this, has ever tried to purchase furniture, get it from North Carolina or wherever it's being purchased from, get it to the receiver, get the receiver, you know, and you really have to have a good relationship with your receiver.
Yeah.
Handle it well. And then this is the part they don't understand. When it's in the receivers, that good receiver needs to look at it, make sure that it was received well and not broken and fixed and this and that. And if it is, it goes back. And there's a lot of things that go behind the scenes that people are not aware of.
That's
that we're doing, right? And then it gets delivered. So all this magic, as they say, we're doing. And there's a lot of time and a lot of work and things like that, you know? And I liken it to any hourly worker. You know, you would pay an hourly worker, right?
Right.
But, this we don't talk about because we just do it.
Well, and
It's
especially in the creative fields. I mean, let's just use the example of your logo that's behind me, right? Somebody put that together, whether it was you or somebody else, and there was time that was allocated to it, right? And then there was probably a couple of options and variations, and then it was a narrowing down and a color selection and a font styling and a appropriate usage and how it's going to be used, and whether it's going to sit only on a piece of paper, or is it going to basically represent a tag on a label on a piece of furniture? Is it going to manifest itself in some sort of signage behind a desk in a front lobby of something? Like, all these things go into this process, I think. And this, we are not unique as an industry, but I think anybody who gets to a certain level of skill in their field, okay, risks the fact that it's seen as being so easy. We make it look so easy, right?
Yes.
But then, and
I mean,
then the assumption is it's so easy. So why is this number associated with so easy? It's not.
Because that's what we do. I mean, I have stories of where clients didn't want me to go out there when it was delivered. They knew exactly where everything was going to go. I get a phone call. This isn't right. The furniture's too big. It doesn't look good. I don't know what you're doing. I go out there. Of course, the furniture's not laid out right. Nothing is supposed to do the way it is. So I put everything the way it's supposed to be. And then they're like, oh,
Right.
how come I do that? Well,
no, it's very true. I mean, the thing with that is that you also risk, okay, like procurement. I'm just going to use a commercial example, okay? Procurement is such a logistical exercise. Like, when you have all these pieces that not only, let's just use a model room, for example, for a hotel, right? That's one room out of 300 that is more or less repeated, right? Maybe with some additional elements, but that's just the rooms. You're not talking about the lobby. You're not talking about the one or out of the 3 restaurants that are in the space. You're not talking about the public area, let alone the art program. I mean, just the number and volume of items that are involved in a procurement for a project. And residential is no different. I mean, I remember fitting out a house, and I can't mention the name of the owner, but I was working with a designer in West LA. We did a house in Beverly Park. It was a 30,000 square foot house with a 5,000 square foot guest house. Okay. Not unheard of in Beverly Park. And we ended up basically having to fit it out. And you had to literally itemize and logistically do this because you had a week to fit it out, down to the candy in the bowl. The question is, many design firms that are large design firms, by the way, like hospitality design firms, many of them do not even attempt procurement because it's such a logistical exercise. They will put it out to a procurement company that will do nothing but take that on to meet budget and to fulfill timelines. And each one of those pieces that we're talking about in that model room, if it's an upholstery piece, if it's a case goods piece, may have another item that's such as a glass top that goes on top of that woodwork. Now there's another vendor involved. The upholstery has to come from somewhere. The trim has to come from somewhere else. Somebody has to put it together where the seams are not in the wrong place. All these things that people don't realize go into the making of the, wow, it looks so great. It looks so perfect. This is the way it's supposed to always have been. And that's where we as designers, I think we need to be encouraged to charge from the very beginning, actually, for the value that we bring when it comes to that. And schools don't do that. That we don't get that savviness as far as the business side of it, I think, unfortunately.
And to be at our level, we have to be perfectionists.
Yeah.
And to be,
your reputation's on the line.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, every, as you say, the candy dish. I mean, everything has to be put in place. And, what Bill's alluding to about, being on site, I mean, it's true. I mean, when I do virtual, I'm virtually there, when it's arriving, right. But you're still there because I liken it to be, being being in an orchestra, right? Yep. And we're the conductor.
Yeah.
Right. And what a mishmash of music would we have if you were not, being the best conductor. And so, that's the thing that we all really, are being, quote, paid for. That's our
Right.
job.
Right.
You know, it's like being the CEO. You know, John Ammerman was the CEO before Jill Berard at Mattel, and I remember going to his office. He had one piece of paper on his desk. I said to him, "Why do you only have one piece of paper? Like, this is a multi-million-dollar company."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Because he's you know, getting all the people that work for him, and he is he's the leader.
Right.
So
He's
he didn't need to have all these pieces of paper, right?
Yeah, right.
He really was conducting the company."
Well, he was
right?
he was delegating everything, and he was basically the center of the spoke, or the ringmaster with the top hat, whatever you want to call it. But yes, and that's knowing your role in the system, knowing your position, and it's interesting because that requires also a certain amount of not only confidence and setting your ego aside, but it also has to do, I think, for me, when I see this, is where you actually trust to delegate, and you let go of things. And a lot of people micromanage themselves out of business, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Pam,
and it's true.
Perhaps you could, in ending, we've had a really great time. You're always a lot of fun to talk to. How do you see design evolving in the future? Do you have some tips or some vision for us you can tell us about?
Challenges that we're facing right now, Pam, things that maybe are opportunities that you see. I mean, if you're a young designer or you're a seasoned designer, right now you're probably wondering, did I pick a right career to basically start down this path? Because, everywhere I look, everybody's challenged. Discretionary spending is kind of tight. Well, not with people who have money necessarily, but because they're looking for better deals right now. But for people that maybe are looking to, redo that nursery or whatever, they're starting out. So as a young designer, you're going, did I pick the right field? Or if you're a seasoned designer, but you've been doing it a certain way, and now you basically are faced with the reality that things are kind of drying up a little bit. So talk about opportunities and challenges, if you wouldn't mind, as we close.
I actually think as designers, we should all be so excited, because
I agree. We
are really needed, especially in commercial, because, a restaurateur, his forte is cooking and serving and things of that nature, and what they really need right now is our design thought processes and our design theories and how we can change their space in an aesthetic value that can really keep us in a quote social distance, but still make that space feel comfortable and beautiful, and not all this acrylic and things where you feel right. I mean, who wants to come into a 5-star restaurant with acrylic separating us?
Well, not only acrylic, but like that actually looks half empty. Like, the whole point of when we do layouts and space plans is when you have a large space is you break it down into smaller areas so that never, ever anybody walks in there, and you only have 4 tables out of the, 75 tables that you have. That makes the space look empty, but there's going to be times when you're going to be at low capacity. And so it's the same thing. I walk into a restaurant that's now been allowed to only operate at half capacity, and all they have done is turn the chairs up on top of the tables or remove the chairs. Like, I'm not going to know that somebody removed them, and then basically tape off the table or somehow, whatever. You should have something aesthetically pleasing there. You should be putting barriers rather than plexi. You should be putting barriers that are maybe more fitting with your theme and your material selections that are already in the place, right? And yes, you're right. Yeah, absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And I think it's goes back to this, bunker mentality or growth mindset. It goes back to, is it an opportunity? Is it a challenge, or is it an opportunity? Ironically, every situation is both, if you really allow yourself to think about it that way, right? At first, it's a challenge. And then if you can get your get into a different headspace, it could very well be not only be an opportunity to, like in this particular case, allow you to survive through and sustain through this uncertainty, which everybody's dealing with the uncertainty of it, but it could also provide you with an opportunity to thrive and actually expand your business in a manner that was never on your radar screen. And it is
Pam, do you think you'll be kind of moving and doing a little more commercial projects, restaurants, do you think? Does that excite you now?
Well, I mean, I've been doing commercial.
Is that going to put a smile on your face and get you to the Bahamas? There we go. Get to the Bahamas faster.
Seriously.
We're still keeping the casita on the side of the property, Bill.
Good. I'm glad. You're all welcome. You're all welcome. Let's build the cabanas out there.
Like your ideas of what you said about not barriers, not the acrylic, but something else.
Yeah.
I think that's
well, I mean, I've been doing commercial and residential. I know there's a lot of theories with designers where they need to stay in their box, you know, but I'm not that thought process, right? You know, Raad, I believe, is the same thought, you know, where, you know, we go where we're needed. And this is where I think, you know, designers need to get the headspace of designers are there to help. And if you go with the headspace of that, like right now, we're needed to help.
Mm-hmm.
And we have this amazing thing in our brain where we visually create things in our brain. Like, you know, sometimes it's funny. I'm designing in my head and I have the whole thing in my head and my client's looking at me. She's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm designing your house in my whole head. Yeah. And like, you know, putting all the chairs together and people are like,
yeah, don't mind me. I'm working right now.
Right. It's true. You know, I mean, that's what makes us a little wacky, right?
Right.
You know, I mean, and so, you know, as designers, you know, and I call them true designers, right? And I know people will get upset with me when I say that, but, you know, it's true.
True design.
You know, you really have to look at it as we are helpers. And we're helpers that can really bring to the table value to different spaces.
Right.
So is it the homeowner who's trapped in their house, who has, you know, aged children that cannot go to school right now, that really need a space to differentiate, you know, from the home and school?
Challenge.
Right? So they're not going nuts.
Challenge or opportunity. Challenge or opportunity. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Whoa.
So that's you know, versus, and then there's, you know, commercial. So when I know I'm not avoiding your question, you know, to answer your question, you know, commercial, always on the table. I got, you know, I have right now a commercial project that was, you know, given to me over by Fashion Island to do, you know, a big, I can't speak of it right now. And I'm doing that right now. And all my, thank you. And all my thoughts and my designs are all focused on moving forward as if the pandemic will never end.
Right.
Yes. Well, that's,
you know,
you have to have that mindset. Yes.
You do. You do.
Well, it's I mean, it's no different. Look, the pandemic is no different than when real estate prices and lease prices go through the roof, and you got to basically figure out a way to solve the problem in that you don't have the ability to have a 3,000 square foot restaurant. You don't have the means to make that pencil out. You are now faced with a person who still wants to have some sort of food and beverage location. Can I make that happen in 700 square feet?
Without people dying.
Well, I mean, I'll use a perfect example. I had an opportunity to do there was a men's grooming product company out of Toronto, out of Canada, that had about 1,800 product lines on their website. They did not have a retail presence. The gentleman who basically bought the rights to the United States and world for retail presence, he wanted to open a location. Well, the business model itself was very much a shipping and airdropping product, right? But he still wanted to have a physical location. We made it work in a 700 square foot footprint of Grand in Pasadena. Then we had an opportunity to take that and basically make it work in a potentially insert booth, kind of like central booth area in a lot of these shopping big boxes like Bloomingdale's or Marshall, or, you know, like people that they didn't have a presence for men's grooming or product lines, but they didn't really, they had all this empty space in the middle of their space that they could basically reinvent or reposition. So we did it that way. And then we had an opportunity to apply it to a counter space. That's probably the space footprint was like 23 by 18, I think, which was at a gate in Burbank Airport. So the point of what I'm saying is sometimes challenges come and opportunities to be at Burbank. Can you imagine being inside of a gate 5 at Burbank Airport and catching all the traffic that's going to Vegas, and somebody can't sell that counter space, couldn't sell tickets to shows in Vegas, and we had an opportunity to basically put in a men's barber shop, basically with a barber chair in that same footprint. Sometimes those challenges, if you don't get basically paralyzed by them, could be actually not only great opportunities, but can push you as a designer to really grow in your skill.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
And this pandemic is no different if you get your head around it that way.
Right. And going back to your conversation about, chairs on the, table and moving, the restaurant cannot survive with half the amount of population in the restaurant.
No.
They just can't.
Right.
Meaning, I have friends that own restaurants, and they're just surviving right now.
Right, yeah.
And I'm not talking about the just the deliveries and such. I mean when they opened.
Oh yeah, no, it's a very difficult time in an industry that's already pretty challenged with very small margins to begin with, right? And now you've got not only those challenges, but you also have challenges with labor force. You have challenges with sanitation guidelines. You have challenges with just the impression that you want to present to people that this is a safe place for you to come in, right? And we got to think bigger than just that plexi. We got to think bigger in terms of how the whole experience of that space now gives me a sense of not only, ooh, I can't wait to taste the food, but I feel safe doing it, right? Because that safety thing will go way beyond COVID. Why would I ever stop looking for that, right? In fact, if you don't have it, I'll be starting to look at elsewhere to go.
But how exciting, right?
Yeah,
As
it's
a designer,
very, very exciting.
how exciting
Yeah.
to reinvent the restaurant.
Yes.
Or the way we eat or dine out. Or how exciting for us in our spaces at home to reinvent, right? I mean, that's, to me, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's you talk about pivoting. That's the world pivoting.
Well, which is gonna happen regardless whether you're part of that, you're on that train or you're not. You used the train before we got on the air as an analogy, and one of my favorite things to say is exactly that. The train is leaving the station. Are you going to be on the platform or are you going to be on the train? I don't know where the destination is necessarily, but you know what? Let's ride this train and see. And if you're a designer in your DNA, really, right, then you're looking at this as being a great opportunity, exciting opportunity. This thing came up at the very beginning of the pandemic. There was an article, and I wish I could find it, I would share it, that talked about the fact that all the way that we design bathrooms in homes, in hotels, and whatever, right? The way that we design bathrooms, the materials we use for those bathrooms, 95% of that approach and materials came out of an answer for dealing with a crisis. The synthetic countertop materials that we use, the wall hanging, the AD, we were challenged by ADA. How many people still, after, 97, I think it was, how many people are still out there huffing and puffing and whining about ADA? Instead of looking at it as an opportunity to provide for people with, regardless of ability limitations, right? So I'm a business down that can cater to everybody. And I got this group of people that basically don't really get a chance to get a full-on experience catered to them, that have discretionary spending to spend right now, right? And if my space can accommodate them, is that not a business opportunity for me? Is that not a competitive advantage for me? So a
prime example is seamless floor showers. Where do you think that came from?
Bingo, exactly.
Right?
Right.
That's an ADA right there.
Absolutely.
And now I'm putting it in almost every high-end home, and then, lower homes are dying for it, and they can't because of, the requirements of the flooring and such of that nature. But that's a perfect example.
Perfect example. Hands-free. Okay, it's too costly. I don't want to really do hands-free. Okay, now if you walk into a bathroom that's all hand-free, especially with what's going on, don't you feel like, wow, they really care about me? Like, I don't have to, like, if I can only just figure out a way to basically open and close the door to the bathroom without actually having to touch the handle, maybe there's a sensor that opens the door, right? But I mean, these challenges that we have always encountered, designers, architects, like before it became a a standardized titled profession. It was basically, we are challenged and we have a creative need to find a solution.
Solve a problem.
Yeah, solve a problem. We are problem solvers. Like, I mean, really, at the end of the day, that is who we are. And when we get all caught up in the minutia of the, the ego side of it and all this stuff, I mean, the best feeling for me is when I basically get a client that says something to me that is a direct reflection of how their life improved tactily. Something happened. They did something, and it could have been the smallest thing. And they go, wow, you know what? I'm so glad you did that, because I'm going to do this. And it was so cool to be able to do it this way. That is, yeah, go ahead.
I'm so glad you said that, Raad, because, in my philosophy, as a designer, yes, color, yes, furniture, things like that is important. But my number one job when I go into a client is ask, how do you live?
Right.
What would make your life better?
Right.
It's not about just bringing in pretty furniture. It's not about bringing in pretty fabrics. It's about, how can I improve your life?
Well, the pretty fabric,
family's life,
the pretty fabrics, the pretty paint. I mean, I hope nobody gets offended with this, but the pretty fabric, the pretty paints, those are almost like a given. Like you have to be able to deal with that. The level of where the rubber meets the road is what you're talking about. And I will tell you this: when you start taking it into the commercial scene, at the end of the day, the expectations is a certain quality of product, but nobody cares. People could care less what paint color you put on the wall, as long as the aesthetic and experience that you are basically selling, which is what it is going to generate a certain return on investment per square foot. I mean, the way I look at some of my commercial stuff, and I basically present it to clients, is literally like a case study. Like, if you do this with this square footage is generating X for you right now. If you change the purpose of that square footage or realign it in a different way, it is likely to generate this much square footage for you, or you gain this much additional usability of space, right? And they're looking at numbers, and they're looking at it very closely, and they're thinking, well, if you want to do the wall in aqua green or teal, I really don't care. Does it give me a tropical feel that matches with my brand? Terrific. And do I get extra revenue generation or optimized revenue out of that space? Terrific. Let's go. How soon can I get it? I mean, we really have to understand that those are things that are driving. And sometimes when we walk in with all the pretty pictures and all the stuff, but we don't really talk to that, we do ourselves a disservice.
True. Very good. True. Very true. Yeah,
absolutely. So Pam, I want to thank you. This has been an exciting train ride.
Awesome conversation.
And you have a lot of fabulous ideas, and we look forward to hearing about you in the future. And this is an exciting time, and it's also a unexciting time for a lot of people. So it's just interesting time for us. And I'm glad you mentioned that you should be excited, because I think all designers should be excited about all the challenges and opportunities we have.
Right, and Bill, I mean, people that are listening to this, keep in mind, take it with a little bit of grain of salt, that you're talking to three people here that are on this show that have been around for quite a bit in this field. So we are very, I mean, I think I can speak. Well, in a good way. I didn't mean that in a bad way. Okay. What a bunch of characters I got on the show today, right? Okay, but I mean, half the time I have to deal just with Bill, but now I got Pam too. Today.
Yeah, you have Pam to do.
Right, but that's
a dangerous combination.
Well, let me finish my.
There was no symbol for the cable to put on the drawings.
Well,
they didn't have cable TV then.
You didn't have cable TV?
No.
Here you are doing a show on Zoom.
We had TV and it was in color, but we didn't have cable TV.
So I used to write in stone. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
Well, it must have been nice having writing utensils. I mean, I had to use like whatever jagged rock I could find. Okay, and I had to actually chisel the jaggedness in the rock. I mean, it didn't come.
With the Flintstones was my favorite TV show.
Sorry to interrupt, Raad.
Mine too, by the way. And the Professor on Gilligan's Island, I really like his creative solution provisions, right? So. But what I was going to say to people who are watching the show is, take what we're saying also with that there's a certain seasoning that comes with the doing, right? And so we're not insensitive to the fact that people are challenged in the industry, okay, or that not maybe you don't see the excitement. We're proposing that you may want to look at it through that side view, right, rather than straight on. Now that we're in this thing for 5 months or whatever, and it is a great field to be in if you embrace that, because then you're really looking for opportunities to shine. You're looking for opportunities to creatively solve things, you know, to apply yourself. And again, reach out to people that are around you, because you know, we are a community. And I think the hardest thing with what's going on with COVID right now is that we don't get a chance to do this. I mean, you seeing a perfect example of it right here on this show, where the three of us have not been able to be in person for almost 5 months, right? And this is the closest that we've gotten, and you can see the exchange and the banter. We are very much communal as an industry. And I think if you are not doing it yet, even in the midst of this COVID, reach out to some of your peers, reach out to some people that you share interests in, and build that community, because that's one thing you can do right now that will serve you well.
Well, that's what we're doing on Design Sense.
That's what we're doing on Design Sense.
And very well, I must add.
Well, thank you, Pam. And thank you again for being our incredibly exciting guest. You really gave insight.
How can people get hold of you, Pam, if they want to try to get hold of you?
So everything is Pazzammed. So it's
Pazzammed.
So it's Pazzam Designs.
.com.
Because you can Pazzam Designs at gmail.com, Pazzam Designs, Instagram, Facebook, anything, Pazzam Designs.
And we'll be seeing you soon in the Bahamas.
Absolutely.
You're flying alone.
You know why I hesitated? Because you're not going to see me. I'm just going to be there by myself.
Ha ha ha.
No, just kidding.
You're flying alone, Bill.
I'm flying. You're all welcome. I love you dearly.
Love you too, Pam. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for taking the time, Pam.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Bill. It's always a fun.
Be safe.
You, Raad.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.